My parents called it independence when they refused to help me pay for college, and I believed them, right up until I finally paid off every last dollar I owed. Then they came back smiling, asking me to sign one little paper. Just for a year. But the forgiveness felt scripted, the urgency felt practiced, and somewhere in their perfect story, my name was already on a debt I never agreed to. The screen on my laptop was arguably the most boring thing I had looked at all week. Yet I could not tear my eyes away from it. It was a standard banking portal, the kind with blue headers and gray text, but the number in the center of the page was a masterpiece. 0. I refreshed the page. I had to be sure. The little circle spun for a second that felt like an hour, and then the page reloaded. It still said 0. 9 years. It had taken me 9 years of working double shifts, skipping meals, wearing coats until the elbows wore through, and sleeping 4 hours a night to reach this specific, quiet moment. I was 34 years old. Most of my peers in Harbor Glen were posting photos of their second baby showers or their kitchen renovations. I was sitting on a second-hand beige sofa in a 600-square-foot apartment, celebrating the fact that I finally owned my own life. I reached for the glass of wine I had poured 20 minutes ago. It was lukewarm now, but I took a sip anyway. It tasted like victory. It tasted like freedom. I looked around my living room. It was modest. The rug was from a discount outlet. The television was a model from 3 years ago. But everything here, from the coasters to the curtains, was mine. No one had given it to me. No one held the receipt over my head. When I was 25, I had stood in my parents' kitchen in Briar Hollow and asked for help with my final semester of tuition after my scholarship was unexpectedly reduced. I could still remember the smell of my mother's pot roast filling the room, a smell that used to mean safety. My father had not even looked up from his newspaper. He had told me that hardship builds character. He had said that if they bailed me out, I would never learn the value of $1. They told me it was time to be independent, so I became independent. I dropped to part-time status, took a job waiting tables at a diner that smelled permanently of burnt grease, and I clawed my way through. I graduated 2 years late. I missed holidays because I was working. I missed birthdays because I could not afford the gas money to drive back to the suburbs. I built a career in project management, brick by exhausting brick, until I became the person people relied on to fix broken things. I closed the laptop lid. The silence in the apartment was heavy, but it was a good kind of heavy. It was the weight of security. Then my phone buzzed against the coffee table. The sound was jarring, a violent intrusion into my peace. I glanced at the screen. A notification from WhatsApp. It was the Wood family chat, a digital graveyard that usually remained dormant for months at a time. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. Diane Wood. I was just looking through old albums. Found this one of you at the lake. You were always so determined. Even back then, we were talking about how that independence really built your character. Claire, we are so proud of the woman you became. A photo followed. Me at age 7, frowning, trying to untangle a fishing line while my father watched from a distance. Hands on his hips, I stared at the message. The word independence sat there like a loaded gun. For 9 years, that word had been their shield. It was the word they used to justify their absence when I had pneumonia and no health insurance. It was the word they used when I needed a co-signer for my first apartment and they refused, forcing me to live in a place where the front door did not lock properly. Now, suddenly, it was a compliment. The phone buzzed again. Diane Wood. Your father and I were hoping you could come for dinner on Friday. It has been too long. Just a family meal. Evan is here too. We would love to see you. I felt a prickle of unease at the base of my neck. My mother did not send nostalgic texts on Tuesday nights. She did not use the word proud without a transaction attached to it. The message read like an apology. But I knew better. It was an opening move. I typed a reply, then deleted it. I typed another. I'm busy with work. Before I could hit send, the screen changed. Incoming call. Marcus Wood. My stomach did a slow roll. My father never called. He believed telephones were for emergencies and business deals. If he wanted to speak to me, he usually relayed the message through my mother, like a king issuing a decree through a scribe. I answered, "Hello, Dad?" "Claire," he said. His voice was different. Usually. His tone was brisk, authoritative, the voice of a man who owned a local storage empire and expected the world to organize itself around his schedule. Tonight, he sounded tired, or maybe he was acting tired. "Did you get your mother's text?" "I was just reading it," I said, keeping my voice neutral. I was about to reply. "Come to dinner, Claire," he said. It was not a command, which alarmed me. It was a request. "We want to see you. There are things we need to discuss." "I have a lot on my plate this week," I lied. "It is important," he said. There was a pause, a heavy silence that transmitted more anxiety than his words did. "The house is under some pressure. We are looking at some changes. We just want to sit down as a family and talk it through." "The house?" I asked. The house in Briar Hollow was their temple. It was a sprawling colonial on a hill, the physical manifestation of my father's ego. "What kind of pressure?" "Not over the phone," he said quickly. "Just hear us out. Please, for your mother." He knew exactly where to press. He knew that despite everything, despite the years of silence and the cold shoulder, I still carried the reflex to be the good daughter. I still had that pathetic, childish hope that maybe, just maybe, they actually wanted to see me. "Friday," I said. 7 o'clock. "Good," he said. The relief in his voice was audible. "Good girl. We will see you then." The line went dead. I lowered the phone and looked at my blank reflection in the television screen. Good girl. I had zero debt. I had a savings account. I had a life that I had built out of nothing. But one phone call, and I felt like I was back in that kitchen at 25, begging for a lifeline. Friday evening in Briar Hollow was a study in suburban perfection. The lawns were cut to military precision. The luxury SUVs in the driveways were polished to a mirror shine. As I drove my 5-year-old sedan through the winding streets, I felt the familiar tightening in my chest. This was a place where appearance was the only religion that mattered. I pulled into the driveway of my parents' house. It looked exactly the same as it had the day I left. The white pillars, the perfectly trimmed hedges, the American flag snapping gently in the breeze. It looked stable. It looked impenetrable. I took a breath, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, and stepped out. I was wearing my best blazer, my armor. I was a project manager. I managed million-dollar budgets and temperamental contractors. I could handle a dinner with my parents. The front door opened before I could knock. "Claire!" My mother stood there, arms wide. She was wearing a silk blouse and pearls, her hair coiffed into a helmet of blonde perfection. She hugged me, and the scent of her expensive perfume filled my nose. It was a smell I associated with judgment. "Look at you. You look tired. Honey, are you eating enough?" "I am fine, Mom," I said, stepping back from the embrace. "I just finished a big project. Always working," she said, shaking her head with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Come in. Your father is in the den." I walked into the foyer. The house was immaculate. Not a magazine was out of place. The air conditioner hummed a low, expensive note. "Claire," I turned. Evan was leaning against the archway of the dining room. My younger brother. He was 31, but he still had the soft, unformed look of someone who had never truly hit a hard surface. He was wearing a polo shirt that looked brand new and a watch that probably cost more than my car. "Hey, Evan," I said. "I heard you moved back." He flinched, just slightly. "Transitioning," he corrected, flashing a smile that was too bright, too loud. "Just shifting gears. That venture in Austin was great experience. Really great. But the market down there is saturated. Dad needs a hand with the business anyway. Thought I would come back and help steer the ship." I nodded. I knew the translation. Evan had failed. Again. And instead of letting him fall, my parents had caught him, dusted him off, and rewritten the narrative. "Good to see you," I said. We moved into the dining room. My father was already seated at the head of the table. He stood up when I entered, a gesture of respect he usually reserved for business partners. Claire, he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm, but his palm felt damp. Thank you for coming. You made it sound urgent, I said, taking my seat. Let's eat first, my mother said, bustling in with a serving platter. Pot roast, your favorite. It was not my favorite. It was Evan's favorite. I did not correct her. The dinner was a masterclass in tension. The conversation flowed, but it felt scripted, like a play where everyone had memorized their lines but hated the casting. They asked about my job. They nodded enthusiastically when I talked about the logistics of my latest site management. That is wonderful, my mother said, pouring more wine. You were always so organized, even as a little girl. You never needed us to tell you to do your homework. You just did it. Unlike this one, my father joked, pointing a fork at Evan. Evan laughed. A barking sound. Hey, I was a creative spirit. Claire was the machine. She loves the grind. Right. Claire, you love the struggle. I appreciate the stability, I said, cutting my meat. I appreciate knowing that my bills are paid. Of course, my father said. He set his fork down. We are very proud of you, Claire. We know we were hard on you back then, but look at you now. You are self-sufficient. You are tough. We gave you the gift of grit. I chewed slowly. The gift of grit. Is that what we were calling neglect now? You are a little guarded. Though, my mother added, tilting her head, I feel like we barely know what is going on in your life. You keep score, honey. You hold on to things. I don't keep score, I said. I just remember facts. Facts, Evan muttered, reaching for the bread. Always so serious. My father cleared his throat. The sound silenced the table. This was it. The rehearsal was over. Claire, he began, placing both hands flat on the table. We wanted to talk to you because we are making some financial adjustments. Smart adjustments. For the future. I wiped my mouth with the linen napkin. What kind of adjustments? The business has been challenging, he said. He did not look at me. He looked at the centerpiece. The storage market is shifting. We have had some cash flow issues. And with your mother's health? My health is fine, my mother said quickly, touching her necklace. Just stress. Medical bills, my father corrected, his voice firmer. My credit took a hit last year, a minor hit, an administrative error, really, but it brought the score down just enough to make refinancing the house difficult. Why do you need to refinance the house? I asked. To access equity, Evan piped up. He sounded like he was reciting a brochure. Liquidity is key right now. We need to inject some capital into the business to modernize. New security systems, climate control. It is a no-brainer investment. Okay, I said slowly. So you are refinancing. What does that have to do with me? My parents exchanged a look. It was a micro-expression, a quick dart of the eyes that spoke volumes. You do it. No, you do it. We need a co-signer, my father said. The room went very quiet. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked loudly. A co-signer, I repeated. Just a secondary guarantor, my mother said, her voice lifting in pitch. It is just to get the preferred interest rate. The bank is being ridiculous about your father's score. If we add you to the application, with your clean history, it would smooth everything out. Just for a year, maybe 18 months. Then we refinance again and take you off. I stared at them. I looked at Evan, who was studying his wine glass with intense fascination. I looked at my father, whose jaw was set in a line of stubborn pride. I looked at my mother, whose eyes were wide and pleading. They knew. They knew I was debt-free. They knew I had fixed my credit. They had been watching, waiting for the moment I was solvent enough to be useful. You want me to co-sign a mortgage on this house, I said. The house you own. It is just paper, Claire, my father said. It is a formality. It is liability, I said. My voice was calm, which surprised me. Inside, I was screaming. If you default, the bank comes after me. It hits my credit. We are not going to default, Evan snapped. Jesus, Claire, have a little faith. The business is solid. We just need a bridge. If the business is solid, why is Dad's credit bad? I asked. I told you, my father said, his voice rising. Medical bills, complications. Can I see the paperwork? I asked. If you want me to sign something, I need to see the terms. My mother moved instantly. She reached under the table and produced a folder. It was a navy blue presentation folder, crisp and clean. She slid it across the mahogany table toward me. I opened it. The document was already prepared. It was a loan application from a lender I did not recognize. But that was not what made my stomach drop. My name was already typed into the form. Claire Elizabeth Wood. My current address. My social security number. I looked up, feeling the blood drain from my face. You typed this up already. We wanted to save time, my mother said. We know how busy you are. You have my social security number? Of course we do, she said, laughing nervously. We are your parents. This wasn't a question, I said, closing the folder. My hand was shaking, so I pressed it flat against the blue cardboard. You invited me here to sign this. You assumed I would just do it. We assumed you would want to help your family, my father said. The gentleness was gone now. The mask was slipping. After everything we have done for you, everything you have done? I asked. You mean refusing to pay for my college? Telling me to figure it out on my own? And look at you, he said, slamming his hand on the table. The silverware rattled. You are successful. You are independent. We made you that way. We taught you how to survive. Now we are asking for a small return on that investment. A return on investment, I whispered. Is that what I am? Don't twist his words, my mother said, her eyes filling with tears. He just means that we are a family. We help each other. Evan is helping. He's working at the office every day. Evan is living here rent-free, I said. I couldn't help it. The words just fell out. Evan's face went red. I am handling operations. I need to think about this, I said. I pushed the chair back and stood up. I cannot sign this tonight. The rates change on Monday, my mother said, clutching my arm as I moved to step away. Claire, please, we need to lock this in. Then you should have called me a week ago, I said. I am not signing a legal document without reading it. I want to take this to a lawyer, a neutral attorney. My father stood up. He was a tall man, and he used his height to intimidate. He loomed over the table. A lawyer? You want to bring a lawyer into a family matter? It is a financial matter, I said. It is a matter of trust, he spat. You have always been this way. Cold, calculation. You think you are better than us because you have your little degree and your apartment in the city. I don't think I am better, I said. I think I am careful. You taught me to be careful, remember? You wanted independence, he said. His voice was low, venomous. He wielded the word like a knife. You wanted to be separate, fine, but if you walk out that door without helping us, you are making a choice. You are choosing to be a stranger. You are not really family if you are not willing to share the burden. Share the burden? I looked at Evan, who was still sitting, looking petulant and small. Or carry it. Just sign the damn paper. Claire, Evan said. Stop being a drama queen. I looked at the folder on the table. It sat there, innocent and terrifying. If I signed it, I would be the good daughter. I would be accepted. They would smile at me and tell me they were proud. But I looked at my father's face, hard and expectant. He didn't look like a man asking for help. He looked like a man demanding tribute. I am taking the copy, I said. I reached down and grabbed the folder. Claire, my mother started. I will read it, I said, and I will let you know. I turned and walked toward the door. I could feel their eyes on my back. I could feel the outrage radiating from them. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out of the house, down the perfectly manicured path, and got into my car. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to grip the steering wheel for a full minute before I could turn the key. I drove out of Briar Hollow. I passed the pristine parks and the silent, expensive houses. My father's words echoed in the small cabin of my car. You wanted independence. He was right. I did want it. But tonight, I realized that for them, my independence was not a source of pride. It was a resource. They had not refused to pay for my college to build my character. They had done it to save their money. And now that I had built something of my own, they felt entitled to harvest it. I glanced at the folder on the passenger seat. Medical bills, he had said. Just a formality. He had said. I thought about the cash-out refinance. I thought about the way my mother had produced that folder so quickly, as if it were a magic trick. I thought about the fear in Evan's eyes. Not the fear of losing the house, but the fear of being found out. They were lying. I didn't know what the lie was yet, but I could smell it. It smelled like rot beneath the perfume. I merged onto the highway, heading back toward the city lights of Harbor Glen. I was not going to sign that paper. Not until I knew exactly what they were hiding. If they wanted me to be independent, fine, I would be independent. I would do my own research. I would investigate my own parents. And if that made me ungrateful, if that made me the villain in their story, then so be it. I drove into the night, the folder sitting next to me like a passenger I couldn't trust. I was alone again. But this time, the solitude didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the quiet before a war. Saturday morning arrived with the gray, heavy light of a coastal overcast. I sat at my kitchen table, a mug of black coffee cooling near my elbow, staring at the empty inbox on my laptop screen. The silence in my apartment was usually my favorite thing, a testament to the fact that I owed nothing to anyone. But today, it felt oppressive. It felt like the silence of a held breath. I had left Briar Hollow the night before with the physical folder, but I needed the digital trail. I needed the metadata. I typed out a short, neutral email to my mother. Mom, please send over the digital copies of the refinance documents you mentioned. I want to review the terms on my screen before we discuss this further. Love, Claire. I hit send and took a sip of coffee. I expected a delay. My mother was the type of person who treated technology with a mix of suspicion and incompetence, usually taking days to reply to a simple message. My inbox pinged 45 seconds later. The speed of it made my skin crawl. It was not just fast. It was desperate. The subject line read, Urgent. Docs for review. Rates change Monday. I opened the email. There was no greeting. No, hope you slept well. No, thanks for coming to dinner. Just a block of text that looked like it had been copied and pasted from a script. Claire, attached are the papers. Please review them immediately. The lender says we need to lock in the rate by Monday morning or we lose the adjustment. We are counting on you to do the right thing for the family. Do not overthink this. It is standard procedure. I downloaded the PDF. It was thick, 80 pages of dense legalese. I was a project manager. I lived my life in contracts and scope documents. I knew how to read the fine print that most people skimmed. I scrolled past the cover page, past the definitions, and stopped at the loan breakdown. My eyes narrowed. My father had said the refinance was to lower the interest rate and cover some medical bills. He had implied a modest sum, perhaps $20,000 or $30,000 to clear up credit card debt incurred from deductibles. I looked at the line item labeled Cash Out to Borrower, $350,000. I read it again. $350,000. That was not medical bills. That was a second life. That was an amount of money that could buy a small house in some parts of the country. Why did they need over $250,000 in liquid cash? I kept scrolling, my heart beginning to hammer a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I reached the section describing the collateral property. Property A, 442 Briar Lane, Harbor Glen, Washington. That was the family house. Property B, Adjacent parcel 443, undeveloped lot. I froze. I knew the house on Briar Lane sat on a large corner plot, but I had never known there was a separate deed for the side yard. To me, it had always just been the yard, the place where Evan and I played tag. Where my father insisted on mowing the grass in diagonal stripes, they owned it as a separate asset, and they were leveraging it? I scrolled to the bottom of the document. There was the contact information for the loan originator. It was not a bank. It was not a credit union. Hathaway Family Stewardship Center. Counselor. Timothy Vance. The name sounded less like a financial institution and more like a church retreat. I picked up my phone. It was Saturday. But the document listed a direct line for Mr. Vance. I dialed. Hathaway Stewardship. Timothy speaking. How may I serve your family today? The voice was smooth, deep, and coated in a veneer of aggressive pleasantry. Hello, I said, keeping my voice professional. My name is Claire Wood. I am looking at a loan agreement you prepared for Marcus and Diane Wood. Ah, yes, Vance said. The recognition was instant. The daughter, Diane told me you would be reaching out. It is a blessing to have you involved. Claire, truly, it speaks to your character. I have some questions about the terms, I said, ignoring the compliment. Specifically the cash-out amount. $350,000 seems high for a simple rate adjustment. It is a comprehensive restructuring, Vance said. His tone shifted, becoming lower, more confidential. Your parents are looking to secure their legacy. The funds are allocated for stabilization. It is about stewardship. Claire, ensuring the family home remains a sanctuary. Stabilization of what? I asked. And why is there a second parcel listed? I didn't know my parents owned a second lot. Assets are often complex, Vance said, dodging the question with the skill of a politician. The inclusion of the adjacent parcel strengthens the loan-to-value ratio. It protects everyone. It allows us to offer the family the grace of a lower monthly payment. I am not seeing how a $300,000 increase in principal lowers their payment, I said. Even with a better rate, the math doesn't work. We use a blended product, Vance said. It is a specialty of Hathaway. We help families navigate seasons of difficulty. But Claire, I must stress the timing. The market is volatile. We have a window of opportunity here to help your father restore his standing. I know he is a proud man. It takes a lot for a father to ask a child for help. It is a biblical kind of humility, don't you think? I think it is a financial transaction, I said. I would like to have my attorney review these documents before I sign anything. The silence on the other end was sudden and sharp. An attorney, Vance repeated. The warmth drained out of his voice, replaced by a cold, disappointment-laced condescension. Claire, I would caution you against that. Lawyers are, by nature, adversarial. They look for conflict. They look for problems where there are only solutions. Bringing a lawyer into a family covenant, well, it changes the spirit of the thing. It turns a gesture of love into a battle. It is a contract, I said. Contracts are legal documents. It is a trust agreement, Vance corrected. At Hathaway, we believe that families should solve their own problems. We facilitate that. If you bring in outside counsel, we may have to rescind the offer. We cannot work in a hostile environment. So if I have a lawyer read it, you pull the loan? We would have to reevaluate the risk profile, Vance said. And I would hate for your parents to lose this chance because of procedural paranoia. Trust your heart. Claire, honor your father and mother. That is the oldest law, isn't it? I hung up. My hand was shaking. I put the phone down on the table and stared at it. Procedural paranoia. Honor your father and mother. It was a hustle. I knew a hustle when I heard one, but it was a hustle wrapped in the American flag and the Bible. Designed to make anyone who questioned it feel like a moral failure. I needed a sanity check. Monday morning, I went to work. The office was a glass-walled hive of activity in downtown Harbor Glen, a world away from the quiet desperation of Briar Hollow. I sat at my desk, staring at a Gantt chart for a new commercial development, but the lines blurred together. "You look like you are plotting a murder," a voice said from the doorway. I looked up. Tessa Lane was leaning against the frame, holding 2 coffees. She was my closest friend, a woman who had seen me through the worst of my poverty years. She was sharp, cynical, and fiercely loyal. "Not a murder," I said, rubbing my temples. "Just a refinance." Tessa walked in and shut the door behind her, a universal sign in corporate America that the conversation was off the record. She handed me a coffee. "Spill, you went to the dinner. You survived. What did they want?" "They want me to co-sign a loan," I said. "A massive one, $350,000 cash out, and the loan officer told me that if I hire a lawyer, I am dishonoring my family." Tessa's eyebrows shot up. "He said what?" "He said lawyers are adversarial, and it would ruin the spirit of the covenant." "Claire," Tessa said, sitting down in the guest chair. "That is not a loan officer. That is a grifter. What is the company?" "Hearthway Family Stewardship Center." Tessa pulled out her phone and tapped a few keys. "Sounds like a cult, or a scam, or both." She looked up at me. "You didn't sign it, right?" "No," I said. "But they are pressuring me. They say if I don't sign by today, the rates change. My dad, he looked desperate. Tessa, he looked scared." "Good," Tessa said brutally. "Fear keeps people honest. But your parents aren't being honest. Claire, think about it. If they have $350,000 in equity to pull out, why do they need you? Why is your dad's credit so bad that they need a co-signer for a secured loan?" "Medical bills," I said, repeating the lie. "Bullshit," Tessa said. "Medical bills hurt your score, sure, but they don't make you radioactive to lenders unless you are defaulting on everything else too. They are hiding something." She leaned forward. "You need to run your own credit report. Right now." I stiffened. "My credit is fine. I check my score on the banking app." "Not the app," Tessa said. "The full report. The one that shows every inquiry, every closed account, every address linked to your social. If they are willing to pressure you into a $500,000 liability, you need to make sure they haven't already started using your name." "They wouldn't," I said, but even as I said it, I remembered the folder. Already labeled. My social security number typed in. "Do it," Tessa urged. "For me? If I am wrong, I will buy you lunch for a week." I opened a new tab on my browser. I felt a wave of nausea. Checking my credit felt like an invasion of my own privacy, an admission that I suspected my own parents of being criminals. I went through the security questions. Which of these addresses have you lived at? What is the monthly payment on your car loan? I hit Generate Report. The wheel spun. The report loaded. I scanned the summary. Score, 780. Excellent. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "See?" I said. "It is fine. Look at the inquiries," Tessa said. "Look at the hard pulls." I scrolled down to the section labeled Inquiries in the last 24 months. There was one from my car lease 2 years ago, one from my credit card issuer for a limit increase I requested, and one from last week. Creditor, Hearthway Financial Services. Date, October 2nd. "They ran it," I whispered. "They ran my credit." "Did you authorize it?" Tessa asked. "No," I said. "I didn't sign anything." "That is illegal," Tessa said, her voice hard. "They used your social without your permission to see if you were worth targeting." "Wait," I said. I was looking at the section below. The closed accounts. There were my student loans, all marked paid in full. There was an old credit card I had closed, and there was a personal loan. Creditor, Swift Cash Lending. Opened, November 2014. Amount, $5,000. Status, paid in full/closed. I stared at the date, November 2014. "Tessa," I said, my voice sounding hollow. "November 2014. That was my senior year." "So?" "That was the semester they cut me off," I said. That was the winter I was eating ramen noodles and sleeping in my coat because I couldn't afford the heating bill. That was the month I asked them for $2,000 to cover my final tuition installment, and they told me no. I pointed at the screen. A loan was opened in my name that same month for $5,000. Tessa came around the desk to look. Did you take out a loan? No, I said. I couldn't get approved for anything. I had no income. But it is paid off, Tessa said, squinting at the screen. Who paid it? I didn't, I said. The realization hit me like a physical blow to the chest. They had used my name when I was 22, desperate, and begging them for help. They had used my social security number, which they knew by heart, to take out a loan for themselves. They took $5,000 in my name, spent it on God knows what, and then paid it back quietly so I would never know. They had stolen my identity while watching me starve. Oh my God, Tessa said softly. She put a hand on my shoulder. Claire, that is fraud. They told me to be independent, I said. I felt tears pricking my eyes, hot and angry. They lectured me about responsibility while they were forging my signature. You cannot sign that refinance, Tessa said. You absolutely cannot sign it. In fact, you need to go deeper. If they did this, what else have they done? The property, I said. I wiped my eyes furiously. I was not going to cry. I was going to work. The adjacent lot, Parcel B, I need to know who owns it and why it is in the loan. County Records Office, Tessa said. It is public record. Go, take the afternoon. I will cover your meetings. I looked at her. Thank you. Don't thank me, she said. Just nail them. The Harbor Glen Records Office was a basement bureaucracy that smelled of dust, floor wax, and boredom. It was a place of fluorescent lights and linoleum, where the history of the city was stored in rows of gray filing cabinets and on microfiche reels. I walked up to the counter. A clerk with heavy glasses and a cardigan looked up from her crossword puzzle. Can I help you? I need to pull the property filings for 2 addresses, I said. 442 Briar Lane and the adjacent parcel, 443. She sighed, as if I had asked her to move a mountain, and turned to her computer. Name? Wood, I said. Marcus and Diane Wood, she typed. Okay, I have the deeds here. Do you want the lien history too? Yes, I said. Everything. The printer word. She handed me a stack of warm paper. I took them to a small wooden table in the corner and spread them out. I started with Parcel B. It was a strip of land, heavily wooded, that ran along the creek behind my parents' house. The deed showed it had been purchased by my grandfather in the 70s and transferred to my father in the 90s. But it was the encumbrances section on the main house deed that stopped my heart. There was the primary mortgage, held by a major national bank, and there was a second lien. Lien holder, Apex Commercial Lending, debtor, Briar Hollow Storage, LLC, collateral, 442 Briar Lane, recorded 18 months ago. I stared at the paper, Briar Hollow Storage, LLC. That was the family business. My father had used the house as collateral for a business loan. He had leveraged the roof over their heads to prop up the storage facility, and he hadn't told me. The refinance wasn't just about medical bills or interest rates. It was a rescue mission. The business loan was likely coming due, or they were in default. They needed the cash out from the Hearthway loan to pay off Apex Commercial Lending before the house was foreclosed on. But Hearthway wouldn't lend to my father alone because his credit was shot. So they needed a fresh host. They needed me. If I co-signed the Hearthway loan, I wouldn't just be helping them with a mortgage. I would be unknowingly paying off a failing business debt that I had no stake in. I pulled out my phone. I couldn't wait. I couldn't be strategic. The anger was a living thing inside me, clawing at my throat. I dialed my mother. She answered on the second ring. Claire? Did you sign the papers? Mr. Vance called. He said you were asking, why is there a business lien on the house? I cut her off. My voice was trembling. but it was loud in the quiet records room. What? Her voice pitched up. I don't know what you mean. I am at the county records office, I said. I am looking at the deed. Mom, there is a lien from Apex Commercial Lending tied to Briar Hollow Storage. You put the house up for the business. Claire, stop, she said. You are being dramatic. Dramatic? I laughed. A harsh, jagged sound. You are asking me to co-sign a $350,000 loan to pay off a business debt you didn't tell me about. You lied to me. You said it was medical bills. It is all the same pot, she cried. The business, the house, it is all for the family. Why do you have to dissect everything? Why can't you just trust us? Because you stole my identity, I shouted. The clerk looked up. Startled, I lowered my voice to a hiss. I saw the loan from 2014. $5,000. You used my name when I was in college. You took money in my name while I was starving. We paid it back, she sobbed. The tears were instant, weaponized. We paid every cent. We were in a bind. Claire, we did what we had to do to survive. You have no idea what it costs to keep this family afloat. You have no idea. I was your daughter, I said. I wasn't a credit card. Put your father on. I heard my father's voice in the background. There was a shuffling sound, and then he was there. Claire, he barked. Enough. Did you know? I asked. Did you know she used my social? It was a misunderstanding, he said, dismissing a felony with a wave of his voice. It is ancient history. We are talking about now. We are talking about saving the house. You are talking about saving the business, I said. The business is the house, he shouted. It pays for everything. It paid for your braces. It paid for your clothes. And now, when we hit a rough patch, you go snooping around in public records like a detective? You are attacking us. Claire, you are acting superior because you have your little corporate job and your steady paycheck. It is just paperwork. Claire, he mocked. That is what you see. You don't see the blood and sweat I put into this. If you don't sign that refinance, we lose the house. Is that what you want? You want to put your mother on the street? I want the truth, I said. You can't handle the truth, he said. You never could. You were always too soft, too sensitive. You want to be independent? Fine, but don't you dare come crying to us when you are alone. I have been alone for 9 years, I said. Then stay there, he snapped. The line went dead. I stood in the middle of the records room, the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. I felt cold, not the cold of the air conditioning, but a deep, marrow-deep chill. They didn't care. They didn't care that they had committed fraud. They didn't care that they were lying. They only cared that I had caught them. I gathered the papers. I walked out of the building and into the afternoon sun. But the light felt dim. I spent the evening in my apartment, sitting in the dark. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't eat dinner. I just sat there, replaying the conversation. The way my mother had cried, not out of guilt, but out of frustration that her manipulation hadn't worked. The way my father had turned my own victimization into a character flaw. At 11 o'clock, my phone lit up. A text message. Evan Wood. Don't do this here. Call me. I looked at it. Don't do this here. Meaning the family group chat? Meaning the house? I called him. He answered on the first ring. His voice was a whisper. Claire? I am here, I said. I can't talk loud, he said. I am in the garage. Mom and Dad they are losing it. Claire, Dad is pacing the kitchen drinking scotch. Mom has been crying for 4 hours. They lied to me, Evan, I said. They forged my signature. I know, he said. The admission hung in the air. You knew? I knew about the old loan, he said. I didn't know they were going to try to trick you with the refinance until last week. I swear. Why didn't you warn me? Because I live here, he said, his voice cracking. Because I depend on them. I don't have what you have. Claire, I can't just walk away. What is really going on? I asked. Why is there a lien on the house? Is the business that bad? It is worse, Evan said. He sounded terrified. Briar Hollow storage is bleeding. Claire, we are at 40% occupancy. Dad refused to upgrade to digital locks or a website for years. He thought people would just keep coming because he was Marcus Wood. They stopped coming. So he borrowed money, I said. He borrowed from everyone, Evan whispered. He maxed out the credit cards. He took the loan from Apex, and then he went to a private lender. A private lender? Not a bank, Evan said. A guy named Kellen. He charges weekly interest. That is where the pressure is coming from. Kellen is threatening legal action. He is threatening to seize assets. That is why they need the cash out. They need to pay him off before he files a suit and exposes everything. My hand tightened on the phone. So if I signed that refinance, the money wouldn't even go to the house. It would go to a loan shark? Basically, Evan said. But they don't see it that way. They see it as fixing a temporary cash flow problem. They think they can turn it around. They can't turn it around, I said. Math doesn't work that way. They think you owe them, Evan said. His voice was barely audible now. I heard them talking. Dad said you are sitting on a pile of money and doing nothing while the family drowns. He said they raised you. They fed you. And now you are being selfish. Selfish, I repeated. They are in deeper than they told you. Claire, Evan said, and they are looking for a life raft. You are the raft. I am not a raft, I said. I am a person. Just be careful, Evan said. They are desperate, and desperate people do crazy things. I know, I said. I saw the credit report. I have to go, he said. Dad is coming. The line clicked off. I lowered the phone. I looked out the window at the city skyline. I had thought this was a story about a refinance. I had thought it was a story about boundaries. It wasn't. It was a story about survival. My parents were drowning, and they had decided that if they were going down, they were going to drag me down with them. They would use my credit, my name, and my future to plug the holes in their sinking ship. I stood up. I felt a strange, cold clarity. I wasn't going to just say no. I was going to fight. I was going to protect myself. And if I had to burn the bridge to Briar Hollow to save myself from the fire, I would light the match myself. The diner was called the Midway, a low-slung building with peeling chrome accents situated off the exit ramp of Interstate 90. It was the kind of place that existed in the liminal spaces between towns, serving truckers and insomniacs, a neutral ground where no one was likely to run into a neighbor. I arrived 10 minutes early. I sat in a booth near the back, watching the door. The table surface was sticky despite the smell of bleach, and the coffee the waitress poured me was dark enough to dissolve a spoon. I wrapped my hands around the mug, using the heat to ground myself. When Evan walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. In my mind, Evan was always the golden boy. He was the one in the varsity jacket, the one with the winning smile, the one who floated through life on a cushion of our parents' praise. But the man who hesitated in the doorway looked like a ghost of that boy. His shoulders were slumped, his polo shirt was wrinkled, and there were dark, heavy bags under his eyes that spoke of weeks without real sleep. He looked like he had aged 10 years since the dinner on Friday. He saw me and walked over, sliding into the booth opposite me. He didn't say hello. He just looked at the menu as if it contained the secrets of the universe. "You look like hell, Evan," I said. "Thanks," he muttered. "I feel like it." He ordered a black coffee and a side of toast. He clearly had no intention of eating. When the waitress left, the silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. "I pulled the property records," I said, deciding to skip the pleasantries. "I know about the lien from Apex Commercial Lending. I know about the private lender. Kellen, I know you guys are drowning." Evan winced. He rubbed his face with both hands, a gesture of exhaustion so profound it made my own bones ache. "I told them you would find out. I told them you aren't stupid. Dad thinks he can just talk his way through anything. He thinks reality is something he can negotiate. How bad is it? I asked. It is bad, Evan said. He lowered his hands and looked me in the eye. For the first time in his life, his charm was gone. There was no performance, only a raw, ugly honesty. The storage facility has been underwater for 3 years. We lost the contract with the logistics company in 2022. That was 40% of our revenue. Dad didn't want to cut costs because he didn't want anyone to know we were struggling. So he borrowed. And you let him, I said. I didn't just let him, Evan said softly. I helped him. He looked down at his coffee. You want to know why I moved back? It wasn't because the Austin market was saturated. It was because I tanked my startup. I lost $50,000 of investor money in 6 months. I didn't know what I was doing. Claire, I never have. Mom and Dad, they bailed me out. Again. They paid off the investors to keep me from getting sued. That is where the first chunk of equity went. I stared at him. The anger I expected to feel wasn't there. Instead, I felt a cold, hollow sadness. They paid $50,000 to cover your mistake? They have always covered my mistakes, Evan said. That is the difference between us. When you fell, they let you hit the concrete. When I fell, they put a mattress down. And you know what? It crippled me. I don't know how to fix anything. I just know how to hide it. So the refinance, I said. The Hearthway loan, it is to pay off Kellen and Apex? And the fees, Evan said. What fees? Vance, Evan said. The name came out like a curse. Timothy Vance. He isn't just a loan officer, Claire. He is a fixer. He finds families like ours, families that are house rich and cash poor, with a lot of pride and a lot of secrets. How did they find him? Church, Evan said. The Wednesday night social circle. He comes in, talks about stewardship and biblical financial principles. He targets the older couples. He tells them that their equity is a tool from God and that they need to leverage it to leave a legacy. He got the Millers to refinance last year. He got the Davises. And he targets the children? I asked. He targets the stable child, Evan corrected. He looks for the one who got away, the one with the credit score. He tells the parents that bringing the child back into the fold is a spiritual act. He convinces them that by signing the loan, you are honoring the family. But the fees? Claire, the origination fees on these loans are insane. Consulting fees, stewardship fees. He skims 15% off the top before the check even clears. 15%, I repeated. That is $50,000 on a $350,000 loan. Exactly, Evan said. And Dad doesn't care. Dad just sees a way out of the hole. He thinks he can take the money, pay off the sharks, and then the business will magically turn around and we can pay off the Hearthway loan in a year. But the business is dead. Claire, it is a corpse we are trying to resuscitate with borrowed blood. Why are you telling me this? I asked. You were pushing me to sign on Friday. Because I was scared, Evan said. I am still scared. Kellen, he sent a guy to the facility last week, just to look around. It was a threat, but if you sign that paper, Claire, you are going to lose everything you built, and I can't let you do that. Not after what they did to you in college. He looked at me, his eyes wet. I knew about the loan they took in your name back then. I knew. And I didn't say anything because I was getting a new car that same month. I bought my silence with a Toyota Camry. I sat back in the booth, the diner noise, the clatter of plates, the hum of the refrigerator, faded into the background. I was looking at the anatomy of a disaster. My parents weren't just bad with money. They were being harvested by a predator, and they were willing to feed me to him to save themselves. I need to see the books, I said. Evan blinked. What? I am not signing the loan, I said, but I am not going to just watch them drown. Either. I need to see the bank statements. I need to see the notices from Apex and Kellen. I need to see the profit and loss for the storage business. They will never give you that, Evan said. Dad considers his finances state secrets. Then tell them they have a choice, I said. They can show me the truth. and I will help them figure out a bankruptcy strategy or a liquidation plan. Or they can keep lying, and I will walk away and let Kellen do whatever he is going to do. Bankruptcy? Evan whispered the word like it was a profanity. It would kill Dad. His reputation is all he has. His reputation is already dead, I said. He just hasn't read the obituary yet. I didn't go back to the office. I went home and set up a command center on my dining table. I opened a spreadsheet. I started listing what I knew, what I suspected, and what I needed to prove. Then I drafted the email. Mom, Dad, I have spoken with Evan. I know about the business debt, the lien from Apex, and the situation with the private lender. I know that the Hearthway loan is an attempt to consolidate this debt. I will not co-sign the Hearthway refinance. The terms are predatory, and it puts my own financial future at unacceptable risk. However, I am willing to help you navigate this crisis if you provide me with full transparency, last 2 years of tax returns, current bank statements for all accounts, the loan documents from Apex, and the agreement with Kellen. I will help you find a legal and financial path forward. This may involve selling the adjacent lot or restructuring the business. We cannot solve this with more debt. We need a plan based on reality. Please send the documents by tomorrow morning. Claire. I read it over. It was cold, professional, and entirely reasonable. It was the email of a project manager trying to save a failing project. I hit send. The response came 3 hours later. It wasn't an email. It was a phone call from my father. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to be shouted at. Then came the texts. Marcus Wood. How dare you? We ask for help and you send us a list of demands? Who do you think you are? You are a child. You do not audit your parents. Marcus Wood. Evan had no right to discuss family business with you. You have turned him against us. Marcus Wood. If you do not want to help, fine, but do not insult us with your plans. We know how to run our lives. We raised you. I stared at the screen, feeling a familiar tightness in my chest. They were rejecting the life raft because they didn't like the color of the paint. Then, a notification from my mother. A long email. I opened it, expecting more anger. Instead, I found something far more insidious. My dearest Claire, I am sitting here looking at your baby pictures, crying. I remember when we dropped you off at the dorms freshman year. We knew we couldn't pay for everything, and it broke our hearts. But your father and I decided that we had to be strong for you. We knew that if we made it too easy, you would never find your own strength. Refusing to pay for your college was the hardest thing we ever did, but it was a gift. Claire, look at you now. You are strong. You are capable. You built yourself because we stepped back. We gave you the gift of struggle. And now, when we need you to use that strength to help the family that made you, you are treating it like a business transaction. We aren't asking for your money. We are asking for your name. We are asking you to stand with us. Please, honey, don't throw away the character we built in you. Sign the papers. Come home. Love, Mom. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from a rage so pure it felt like it could burn down the apartment building. A gift. They were rewriting history. The nights I spent crying in my car because I was too hungry to sleep? A gift. The humiliation of being evicted from my first apartment because I was short on rent? A gift. The panic attacks? A gift. They weren't confused. My mother knew exactly what she was doing. She was taking her neglect and painting it gold. She was claiming credit for my survival. She was saying that because she tried to break me and failed. She owned my success, and because she owned it, she had the right to spend it. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the city I had conquered alone. No, I said to the empty room. You don't get to do that. I needed a lawyer. Not a corporate lawyer. I needed a shark. Nadine Park's office was in a brick building in the old warehouse district, a space that smelled of espresso and old paper. Nadine herself was a woman in her 50s with short, steel-gray hair and glasses that hung from a chain around her neck. She did not look like a family steward. She looked like someone who ate insurance adjusters for breakfast. She sat across from me, reading the Hearthway loan document I had printed out. She read in silence, her pen occasionally scratching a note in the margins. After 10 minutes, she took off her glasses and looked at me. "This is nasty," she said. Her voice was gravelly and direct. "How nasty?" I asked. "Standard predatory playbook, but with a religious twist," she said. "High origination fees, adjustable rate that uncaps after 12 months, and a balloon payment at year 5 that your parents will never be able to make. They are setting them up to fail so they can seize the property. But the co-signer part," I said. "That is what I need to know about." "Clause 14, Section B," Nadine said, tapping the paper with a manicured nail. "Cross-collateralization." "What does that mean?" "It means," Nadine said, "that if you sign this, you aren't just guaranteeing the loan with your income. You are guaranteeing it with your assets. The language here is vague enough that if the loan goes into default, which it will, Hearthway can come after any asset in your name to satisfy the debt. Your car, your savings account, your future wages." She leaned forward. "And it gets worse. This dragnet clause here, it says that this security interest secures all other debts and obligations of the borrower. If your father takes out another loan with a Hearthway affiliate next year, you are automatically on the hook for that too, without signing a new paper. You are basically handing them a blank check signed with your financial life." I felt the blood drain from my face. "They told me it was just to lower the rate." "They lied," Nadine said simply. "Or they don't understand what they are signing. But Mr. Vance certainly understands." She closed the folder. "You cannot sign this, Claire, under no circumstances." "I am not going to," I said. "But they are already using my name. They ran a hard credit check without my permission." "That is a violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act," Nadine said. "We can sue them for that alone. But you mentioned something else. An old loan?" "Yes," I said. 2014. Swift Cash Lending. $5,000. Opened and closed in my name while I was in college. I didn't open it. Nadine's expression hardened. "Identity theft. Familial fraud." "My parents," I said. "They admitted it. They said they paid it back. So it doesn't matter." "It matters," Nadine said. "It establishes a pattern. It proves they have the capacity and the willingness to impersonate you to secure funds. If they did it then for $5,000. They will do it now for $300,000. "What do I do?" I asked. "Two things," Nadine said. "First, immediate triage. You need to place a credit freeze on all 3 bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Lock it down so tight that no one can open a gym membership in your name, let alone a mortgage. And the second thing? You need to file a police report regarding the 2014 loan." Nadine said. I froze. "A police report? Against my parents?" "It is the only way to formally dispute it and scrub it from your history," Nadine said. "But more importantly, it creates a legal record. If they try to forge your signature on this Hearthway loan, and desperate people often do, you will need proof that this is a recurring issue. If you don't report the first theft, it makes it harder to defend against the second." "I can't arrest my parents," I whispered. "You aren't arresting them," Nadine said gently. "You are filing an information report. But Claire, listen to me. They are not acting like parents. They are acting like a liability. You have to treat them as such." I looked at the folder. I thought about my mother's email, the gift of struggle. "I will do the freeze," I said. "Today, right now, I need to think about the police report. I can't drop a nuclear bomb on them just yet." "The freeze is a good start," Nadine said. "But be warned. When you freeze your credit, Hearthway will know. They are likely monitoring your file daily, waiting for the score to move. When they see the lock, they will react." "Let them react," I said. I sat in the lobby of Nadine's office and used my phone to freeze my credit. It took 20 minutes. I set pins that were random combinations of numbers. Nothing related to my birthday or my address. I locked the doors to my financial house. I felt a strange sense of relief. It was done. I was safe. Then my phone buzzed. Email. From Timothy Vance, Vance@hearthwaystewardship.org. Subject: Conciliatory meeting, urgent. The timing was impeccable. Nadine was right. They were watching. Dear Claire, it has come to our attention that there has been a change in your credit status. While we understand the need for security in these modern times, this action sends a signal of distrust that is deeply wounding to your family. Refusal to support family obligations can fracture relationships in ways that are often irreparable. We believe that money should serve the family, not divide it. Your parents are heartbroken. Claire, they feel abandoned. I am urging you to agree to one final meeting, tomorrow. Come to the Hearthway Center. Let us sit down, pray together, and find a way to honor both your independence and your duty. We can still fix this. In his service. Timothy Vance. I read the email twice. The language was polite, floral even, but the threat was pulsating underneath. Fracture relationships, irreparable. He wasn't telling me to come to a meeting. He was telling me to surrender or be excommunicated. I showed the email to Nadine, who had walked out to the lobby to hand me a card. She read it and snorted. Classic manipulation. Come to our turf so we can gang up on you. I am not going to his office, I said. Good, Nadine said. If they want a meeting, they can have it here, on neutral ground, with legal representation. They won't come, I said. Test them, Nadine said. If they really want a solution, they will come anywhere. If they just want a victim, they will refuse. I typed the reply right there. Mr. Vance, I am willing to meet, but not at your center. I have retained counsel to assist me in reviewing the terms of the refinancing proposal. We can meet at the law office of Nadine Park, 1200 Industrial Way, tomorrow at 2 o'clock. My attorney will be present to mediate. If the loan terms are as standard as you claim, this should not be an issue. Claire, I hit send. The reply came in 4 minutes. It was from my father. Not Vance. We are not coming to a lawyer's office. Claire, this is a family matter. We do not need legal babysitters to talk to our own daughter. If you bring a lawyer into this, you are suing your own family. Don't bother coming home again. I looked at Nadine. She was watching me over the rim of her glasses. They refused? She asked. They said family doesn't need legal babysitters, I said. My voice was steady, but my hands were cold. They said don't bother coming home. I am sorry, Claire, Nadine said softly. But now you know. They don't want a resolution. They want control. I nodded. I stood up and walked out of the office into the cool afternoon air. The rejection stung, sharp and deep, but beneath it, there was something else, a hard, jagged bedrock of truth. They had made their choice. They chose the lie. They chose the predator who flattered them over the daughter who tried to save them. I got into my car and looked at my phone one last time. I blocked my father's number, then I blocked my mother's. It was the hardest button I had ever pressed, but as I merged into traffic, heading back to my quiet, paid-for apartment, I realized that my mother was right about one thing. The struggle had made me strong enough to walk away, but the war wasn't over. I knew that. Vance wouldn't give up a $300,000 commission just because I said no, and my parents wouldn't give up their lifeline just because I blocked them. They were desperate. And as Evan had said, desperate people do crazy things. I checked my rearview mirror. A black sedan was 2 cars behind me. It turned when I turned. Paranoia. I told myself, just procedural paranoia, but I drove around the block 3 times before I parked, just to be sure. The glass walls of my office were designed to project transparency and openness, concepts that were highly valued in the corporate world and utterly foreign to my family. I was reviewing a vendor contract, highlighting a clause about liability caps, when the receptionist's voice crackled through my desk phone. Claire, there is a gentleman here to see you. He says he is your father. My hand jerked, sending a jagged line of yellow highlighter across the page. I stared at the phone. My father did not come to my workplace. He considered my job in the city to be a hobby that had gotten out of hand, A temporary distraction from my real duty of moving back to the suburbs and marrying a man with a golf handicap. He had never been to this building. He did not know which floor I worked on. "Claire?" the receptionist asked again. "I am coming down," I said. My voice sounded thin in my own ears. I stood up and smoothed the front of my skirt. I walked to the elevator, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This was a boundary violation. This was the crossing of a line I had drawn in reinforced concrete. When the elevator doors slid open in the lobby, I saw him. Marcus Wood was standing near the security turnstiles. He was wearing his church suit, a navy blue number that was 10 years old, but meticulously pressed. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking at the modern art on the wall with an expression of polite disdain. He looked like a pillar of the community. He looked like a man who had never missed a mortgage payment in his life. I walked over to him. I did not hug him. I stopped 5 feet away, maintaining the distance of a stranger. "Dad," I said, "what are you doing here?" He turned slowly. His face was calm, terrifyingly so. There was no anger in his eyes, only a deep, sorrowful disappointment that he wore like a badge of honor. "You blocked my number," he said. It was not a question. "You blocked your mother." "I told you I would communicate via email," I said. "I am at work, Dad. You cannot just show up here." "I called your office line," he said. "You didn't answer. So I drove down. It is a long drive. Claire, the traffic is terrible." He said it as if I had personally arranged the congestion on the interstate to spite him. "We are not having this conversation in the lobby," I said. "Please leave. I will email you tonight." "We are running out of time," he said. He took a step closer, invading my personal space. I smelled his aftershave, a scent of pine and old spice that used to make me feel safe and now made my stomach turn. "The rate lock expires in 48 hours. Mr. Vance is holding the file open as a personal favor to me, but he cannot wait forever. You need to sign the papers. Claire." "I am not signing them," I said. "I told you, the terms are predatory. The terms are necessary." His voice rose, just a fraction, enough to make the security guard at the desk look up. "We are going to lose the house. Do you understand that? If we do not get this equity out, the business collapses, the house goes, everything we built for 30 years, gone." "That is not my fault," I said. It was the hardest sentence I had ever spoken to him. "It is your responsibility," he hissed. He lowered his voice, leaning in until his face was inches from mine. "We raised you. We put clothes on your back. We sacrificed so you could have this life." He gestured vaguely at the marble lobby. "And now, when we are bleeding, you stand there and quote legal terms at me? You are cold. Claire, you have ice in your veins. I have a credit report," I said. "And I know about the loan from 2014. His eyes flickered. For a second, the mask slipped, and I saw the fear underneath. But he covered it instantly with aggression. "That is exactly what I mean," he said. "You are obsessed with the past. You are digging up ancient history to justify abandoning your family in the present. If you walk away from this, Claire, if you let us sink, everyone is going to know." I froze. "What does that mean?" "It means I have friends," he said. "I have a reputation, and I will not let you destroy it without people knowing the truth about you. I wonder what your boss would think if he knew you were the kind of person who lets her own parents lose their home. I wonder if he would trust a project manager who lacks basic integrity." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Are you threatening to talk to my boss?" "I am just saying that character matters," he said, smoothing his tie. "I would hate for your employer to be misinformed about yours. I might have to have a word with him, just to express my concern as a father, to let him know that you are under a lot of strain, that you are acting erratically." The room seemed to tilt. He was threatening to gaslight me professionally. He was willing to sabotage my career, the only thing I had that was truly mine, to force me into submission. "Get out," I whispered. "Sign the papers. Claire, he said, Mr. Vance will email you a digital notary link. Do it by 5 o'clock, or I will have to start making calls. He turned and walked out of the revolving doors, stepping into the sunlight without looking back. I stood there, shaking. I felt 19 again, helpless and small, standing in the kitchen while he lectured me about my inadequacy. I felt the old shame, the hot, sticky belief that maybe he was right. Maybe I was the bad one. Maybe I was selfish. Claire? I jumped. It was my supervisor. Helen. She was standing by the elevator banks, holding a stack of files. She had seen everything. I am so sorry, I said, my voice cracked. That was my father. I am sorry. It won't happen again. Helen looked at the revolving doors, then back at me. She didn't look annoyed. She looked concerned. Come with me, she said. She led me not to her office, but to the quiet breakout room at the end of the hall. She closed the door and pointed to a chair. Sit, she said. Breathe. I sat. I tried to pull myself together, to put the professional mask back on, but the cracks were too wide. We are having a disagreement about a family matter. He is very stressed. I apologize for the disruption. Claire, Helen said gently, I heard him. He threatened you. I looked down at my hands. He didn't mean it. He is just desperate. He threatened your job, Helen said. Her voice was firm. He implied he would contact me to damage your reputation. That is not a disagreement. That is harassment. She pulled a tissue from the box on the table and handed it to me. I hadn't realized I was crying until I felt the wetness on my cheeks. I don't want to get HR involved, I said. It is embarrassing. It is not embarrassing, Helen said. It is life, and for the record, if he calls me, I will not listen to him. I judge you by your work, which is exemplary. But I want you to know that we have resources. If you need a protective order, legal can help guide you to the right forms. If you need time off to handle this, take it. I looked at her. She was offering me more support in 5 minutes than my parents had offered me in a decade. And instead of feeling relief, I felt a crushing wave of grief. I grieved for the fact that this kindness felt so foreign, so shocking, and then, immediately, I felt guilt. I felt guilty for needing it. Guilty for being the broken girl with the crazy father. Guilty for taking up her time. Thank you, I said. I need to get back to work. Dice. Take the rest of the day, Helen said. That is an order. Go home. Regroup. Call me if you need anything. I walked out of the building. I couldn't go home. The silence of my apartment would be too loud. I called Tessa. Tessa met me at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. She listened while I recounted the lobby scene, her eyes narrowing with every sentence. When I got to the part about him threatening to call my boss, she slammed her hand on the table. That is extortion, she said. Pure and simple. He is blackmailing you. He calls it concern for my integrity, I said, staring at my latte foam. He is a monster, Tessa said. Okay, we are done playing defense. We are going on offense. Did you get the file from Evan? No, I said. Evan is scared. He won't send the documents. Then we use what we have, Tessa said. She opened her laptop. I spent the morning on the Hearthway Family Stewardship Center. Guess what? Mr. Timothy Vance has a footprint. She turned the screen toward me. It was a forum for consumer complaints. A thread titled Church Financial Scams in the Tri-State Area. Look at this, Tessa said, scrolling down. User, Faithful Dad. 55 wrote, Brother Vance promised us the refinance would save our farm. He said the cross-collateralization was just a formality. 6 months later, they called the note due. We lost the land and the house. They sold it to a holding company for pennies. User. Sarah J. wrote, Hearthway is a predatory lender disguised as a ministry. They targeted my elderly parents. The fees were hidden in the stewardship donation line item. Do not sign anything with them. The template, I said, reading the posts. It is the exact same script, the moral language, the rush to sign, the demonization of lawyers. It is a system, Tessa said. Vance finds distressed families in religious communities. He convinces them to refinance with Hearthway, loading the loan with massive fees and tying it to every asset they have. Then, when the inevitable default happens because the payments are unsustainable, Hearthway, or their shadow investors, forecloses. They strip the equity and move on. And my parents are the perfect mark, I said. Desperate, proud, gullible. And you are the anchor, Tessa said. They need your clean credit to float the loan. If you sign, Vance gets his fees. Your parents get a few months of relief, and then when the business fails, Vance takes the house and comes after your assets. I need to tell them, I said. If I show them this, if I show them it is a scam, they won't believe you, Tessa said. They are too far gone. They will say you are listening to internet lies instead of trusting the man of God. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Evan. Can you talk? I am in the park. I have to go, I said, standing up. Evan wants to meet. Be careful, Tessa said. He is the weak link, Claire, but weak links break. I met Evan at the small municipal park near the old high school. He was sitting on a bench, watching kids play on the swings. He looked even worse than he had at the diner. He was wearing the same clothes, and he hadn't shaved. I sat down next to him. Dad came to my office, I said. Evan winced. I know. He told Mom he was going to straighten you out. I tried to stop him. Claire, I told him it was a bad idea. He threatened to get me fired, I said. Evan put his head in his hands. I am sorry. They are spiraling. Kellen called the house this morning. He gave them a deadline. Friday. If they don't have the money by Friday, he is filing the lawsuit and placing a lien on the storage units. Evan, I said, I need to know the truth, not about the storage units, about 2014, he went still. I need to know exactly what happened, I said. Nadine, my lawyer, says I need to file a police report to protect myself from future fraud. I need to know if it was a mistake or if they did it on purpose. Evan took a long, shaky breath. He didn't look at me. He watched a little girl in a pink coat go down the slide. It wasn't a mistake, he said softly. Tell me. It was November, Evan said. Dad had missed the property tax payment on the business. The county was threatening to seize the facility. He was panicked. He tried to get a bank loan, but he was already maxed out. Then Mom remembered your scholarship paperwork. She had all your info in the file cabinet. I felt a cold numbness spreading through my limbs. Mom suggested it? She said it was a bridge. Evan said, she said they would take out the $5,000 from Swift Cash, pay the taxes, and pay the loan back in 3 months when the Christmas rush revenue came in. They promised each other you would never know. They said it was for your own good, because if the business went under, they couldn't help you. Well, they couldn't support the family. They stole from me, I said, while I was eating peanut butter out of a jar for dinner. I was home for Thanksgiving, Evan said. I saw the letter from Swift Cash on the counter before Mom hid it. I asked her about it. She told me to mind my own business. She said, Claire is part of this family. She can carry some of the weight. And then she bought me the Camry a week later. So you took the bribe, I said. I took the car, Evan said. He turned to me, tears streaming down his face. I am a coward, Claire. I have always been a coward. That is why they love me, because I need them. You don't need them, and that makes them hate you and want you at the same time. They don't want me, I said. They want a cosigner. No, Evan said. It is more than that. I heard them talking last night. Dad said something that made me sick. What? He said, if we get Claire on the deed, if we get her on the loan, then when Kellen comes, we can point him to her. He said you have assets. He said you have a retirement account. He thinks if the house goes down, They can shield themselves by throwing you in front of the creditors." I stared at him. The cruelty of it was breathless. It wasn't just about saving the house. It was a transfer of liability. They were building a human shield out of their daughter. "They want to sacrifice me," I whispered. "They think you can handle it," Evan said. "They tell themselves you are resilient. They say, 'Claire is a survivor. She will bounce back.' They don't see you as a person, Claire. They see you as a resource, an insurance policy." I stood up. The sadness was gone. The grief was gone. All that was left was a cold, hard clarity. "I am going to the house," I said. "Claire, don't," Evan said, grabbing my wrist. "It won't help." "I am not going to help," I said. I am going to finish it." I pulled my hand away and walked to my car. The drive to Briar Hollow was a blur. I didn't remember the highway. I didn't remember the exit. I only remembered the feeling of my hands gripping the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I pulled into the driveway. The house looked beautiful in the late afternoon light, the golden hour. It looked like the American dream. I walked to the front door and opened it. I didn't knock. I still had my key, a relic from a life I no longer lived. My mother was in the living room, folding laundry. She looked up, startled. When I walked in, "Claire?" She stood up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Did you sign it? Did you come to bring the papers?" "I know about the taxes," I said. Her smile faltered. "What?" "The property taxes in 2014, I said. "I know that is why you stole my identity. I know you used my social security number to pay the county because Dad ran the business into the ground even back then." My mother's face hardened. She dropped the towel she was holding. "Evan," she spat. "He never could keep his mouth shut." "He told me everything," I said. "He told me you justified it by saying I should carry the weight. I was 22, Mom. I was a student." "We were drowning," she shouted. "We were about to lose the facility. What did you want us to do? Let it all burn?" "Yes," I screamed back. "Yes, if you couldn't afford it. You should have let it burn. Instead, you burned me. You committed a crime against your own daughter." "It wasn't a crime," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It was a family arrangement. We paid it back. You weren't hurt. Your credit is fine. Why are you so obsessed with this? You value paper over people. Claire, you always have. You care more about your precious credit score than you do about your mother crying in the kitchen." "I care about trust," I said. "And you broke it. You shattered it." "We did what we had to do," she said. She walked toward me, her eyes blazing with a twisted kind of conviction. "We are your parents. We gave you life. We fed you. We housed you. You owe us, Claire. You owe us everything. And now, when we are asking for one signature, one little signature to save our legacy, you act like we are the villains? You are the villain here. You are the one holding the cure and watching us die." "I am not holding the cure," I said. "I am holding the poison, and I am not going to drink it." "Then get out," she said. "If you aren't here to sign, get out of my house." "I am leaving," I said. "But you need to know something. I am not going to be your scapegoat. I know the plan. I know you want to tie me to the debt so Kellen comes after me instead of you. It is sick. Mom, it is evil." She didn't deny it. She just looked at me with a cold, flat stare. "You can handle it," she said. "You are the strong one, remember?" I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had raised me, the woman who had taught me to tie my shoes, and I saw a stranger. I saw a woman so consumed by her own survival that she would cannibalize her own child to stay warm. "I am strong," I said quietly. "Strong enough to stop you." I turned and walked out. I sat in my car in the driveway for a moment. Shaking, I pulled out my phone and called Nadine. "Send the letter," I said. "The demand letter to Hearthway?" Nadine asked. "Yes, demand the fee structure, demand the disclosure of the cross-collateralization clauses, And copy my parents. Copy the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. This is a declaration of war. Claire, Nadine said. Once I send this, there is no going back. Send it, I said. I hung up. I drove to a parking lot near the highway and waited. I needed to be away from the house, but I couldn't go back to the city yet. I felt unmoored. 30 minutes later, my phone pinged. It was an email notification. Nadine had sent the letter. It was a masterpiece of legal aggression, citing the Truth in Lending Act, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and demanding an immediate cease of all solicitation. 10 minutes after that, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from a number I didn't recognize. No area code. Stop digging or you will regret it. I stared at the screen. The text was simple, brutal, and anonymous. It could have been Vance. It could have been the private lender. Kellen. It could have been my father. Using a burner phone. My hands went cold. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. I had threatened a revenue stream. I had threatened a predator's meal. I debated driving to the police station. I could show them the text. I could show them the credit report. I could file the report Nadine wanted. But I hesitated. If I went to the police now, it would be a nuclear strike. My father would be arrested for fraud. The story would be in the papers. Local businessman arrested for identity. Theft of daughter. Despite everything. Despite the office visit. Despite the gift of struggle. A small, stupid part of me still couldn't bear the thought of seeing my father in handcuffs. It was the last vestige of the daughter I used to be. I wouldn't go to the police. Not today. Instead, I would build a fortress. I opened my laptop right there in the car. I started a new folder. Project Independence. I downloaded the text message. I took a screenshot of the call log showing my father's visit to the office. I saved the thread with Evan. I saved the email from my mother. I would document everything. I would communicate only in writing. I would force them into the light. If they wanted to fight, I would not use their weapons. Guilt, shame, manipulation. I would use mine. Facts, dates, laws. I put the car in drive. I was done being the victim. I was the project manager, and I was going to manage this disaster until the bitter end. But as I merged onto the highway, the text message burned in my mind. Stop digging. I knew I wasn't going to stop, which meant I had to be ready for what came next. The regret they promised was coming, but I decided then and there that the regret would not be mine. The legal notice arrived on a Tuesday, not with a bang, but with the quiet, devastating rustle of process server paperwork. I was at my desk, organizing a timeline for the downtown renovation project. When my phone vibrated, it was Evan. "They served me," he said. His voice was high, tight, bordering on hyperventilation. "Who served you?" I asked, though I already knew. "A deputy," Evan said. "At the storage office, in front of a customer. Claire, a notice of intent to sue. Kellen Capital versus Briar Hollow Storage. LLC and Marcus Wood." "Read it to me," I said, capping my pen. "It says we have 48 hours to cure the default or they file for immediate judgment and seizure of assets," Evan said. 48 hours. Claire, Dad is losing his mind. He is tearing the office apart. 48 hours is standard for a demand letter, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It is a pressure tactic." "It is working," Evan said. "Mom is calling you. She is leaving you voicemails. I can hear her screaming at the phone from here." "I blocked her," I said. "She is using the office landline now," Evan said. "They are saying this is it. They are saying this is the proof. They say, if you don't sign the Hearthway deal by tomorrow morning, the sheriff is coming to padlock the gates." "The sheriff doesn't padlock gates based on a letter," I said. "There has to be a court order, a hearing." "They don't know that," Evan shouted. "And honestly, neither do I. Kellen is scary. Claire, Dad says Kellen knows where we live. He knows where you live." I felt a chill slide down my spine. "What do you mean? He knows where I live?" "Dad gave him your address," Evan said. As a reference, months ago, I closed my eyes. Of course he did. He had handed my safety over to a loan shark as collateral for his own pride. Tell them I am handling it, I said. Handling it how? Evan asked. Are you going to sign? No, I said. I am going to find out why the adjacent lot is so important. I hung up and grabbed my purse. The urgency of the situation had clarified my thinking. The Hearthway loan documents had been specific about including parcel 443, the undeveloped wooded lot next to the house. At first, I thought it was just to pad the collateral, to make the loan-to-value ratio look better for the underwriters. But now, with Kellen threatening to seize assets, the inclusion of that specific strip of land felt desperate. Why that lot? It was just trees and a creek. Unless it wasn't. I drove back to the Harbor Glen Records office. The same clerk was there, the woman with the heavy glasses. She looked up as I approached, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. Back again? She asked. I need to see the deed history for parcel 443, I said. Not just the current owner. I need the full chain of title going back 30 years, she sighed. But she typed the request. That is going to take a few minutes to pull from the archives. It is on microfiche. I will wait, I said. 20 minutes later, she returned with a printed stack of grainy images. Here is the transfer, she said, pointing to a document dated 1998, from Silas Wood to the Wood Family Preservation Trust. Silas, I said, my grandfather. And here, she said, flipping to the next page. The trust creates a life estate for Marcus Wood, with the remainder interest to the beneficiaries. I scanned the document. My grandfather had not left the land directly to my father. He had left it in a trust. My father had the right to use it, to mow it, to walk on it. But he did not have the right to sell it or encumber it without the consent of the contingent beneficiaries. I looked at the list of beneficiaries. Evan Marcus Wood, Claire Elizabeth Wood. I am on the deed, I whispered. Technically, you are a beneficiary of the trust that holds the deed, the clerk corrected. But look at this clause here. Restriction on alienation. I read the faded typewriter font. The trustee shall not mortgage, pledge, or otherwise encumber the property without the written consent of all adult beneficiaries. The purpose of this trust is to preserve the land for future generations. I sat back in the hard plastic chair. My father couldn't use the lot as collateral for the Hearthway loan. Not legally, not unless I signed off on it, and that was the trick. The refinance paperwork from Hearthway wasn't just a loan application. Buried in those 80 pages of dense legalese was a waiver. By signing as a secondary guarantor, I wouldn't just be co-signing the debt. I would be consenting to the encumbrance of the trust property. I would be signing away my grandfather's protection. If I signed, I unlocked the asset. My parents could then leverage the land, drain the equity, and when they inevitably defaulted, Hearthway would take the lot. My independence wasn't just a character trait they resented. It was a legal obstacle they needed to liquidate. I pulled out my phone and called Nadine. I found it, I said. The adjacent lot. It is in a trust. I am a beneficiary. My signature is required to mortgage it. That explains the pressure, Nadine said. They can't get the money without you, and not just because of your credit score. They physically cannot convey the title without your consent. They are trying to trick me into breaking the trust, I said. They framed it as helping the family, but they are actually asking me to dismantle my inheritance. It is worse than that, Nadine said. If you sign that waiver, and the loan includes the cross-collateralization clause we found, you are effectively pledging your share of that trust to cover all their debts. You are taking the one asset your grandfather tried to save for you and handing it to Timothy Vance. They know, I said. They have to know. Of course they know, Nadine said. The question is, what are you going to do? I am going to offer them a deal, I said. A real one. I met Evan in the parking lot of the storage facility an hour later. He looked like he was vibrating. He kept checking his rear-view mirror, as if he expected Kellen's goons to jump out of the bushes. Did you talk to them? He asked as I got into his car. I went to the records office, I said. I know about the trust. Evan, he blinked, his mouth opening slightly. The trust? Grandpa's trust, I said. The one that owns the side lot, the one that lists you and me as beneficiaries. Evan's face went blank. I didn't know about a trust. I thought Dad owned it. You really didn't know? I searched his face. He looked confused, genuinely bewildered. I swear, he said. Dad just calls it the expansion lot. He always says he is saving it for a rainy day. Well, it is pouring, I said. And the reason they need my signature is because Grandpa set it up so Dad couldn't sell it without our permission. They are trying to trick us into waiving our rights. Evan slumped against the steering wheel. Jesus, they are selling off everything, even the dirt. Evan, I said, I need you to be honest with me. 100%. When you said you heard them talking about getting me on the hook, what exactly did they say? He swallowed hard. He looked out the window at the rows of orange storage doors. It was Sunday night, he said quietly. After you sent the email demanding the financials, Dad was pacing. He was drinking. He said, She thinks she is so smart. She thinks she can dictate terms. And Mom said, We just need her signature. Marcus, once we have the signature, the trust is unlocked. We can use the equity to pay Kellen, and if the payments get too high later, well, Claire is on the deed now. She can't walk away. He turned to look at me. Dad laughed. Claire, he said, that is the beauty of it. If she signs, she is finally in the boat with us. She can't let it sink without drowning herself. I felt a cold, metallic taste in my mouth. It was confirmed. It wasn't just desperation. It was a strategy. They wanted to lash me to the mast of their sinking ship so I would be forced to bail water for the rest of my life. Okay, I said. Thank you for telling me. What are you going to do? Evan asked. Are you going to sue them? Not yet, I said. I am going to give them one last chance to be parents. I sent the text to my father's burner phone, the only line I hadn't blocked yet. I will come to the house at 7 o'clock. I have a proposal to resolve the Kellen situation. Do not invite Mr. Vance. If he is there, I leave. Family only. The reply came instantly. See you at 7. I prepared my binder. I printed the bankruptcy statutes. I printed a list of reputable liquidation consultants. I printed the text of the trust deed. I drove to Briar Hollow as the sun was setting. The sky was a bruised purple, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. When I walked into the house, the atmosphere was different. There was no smell of pot roast, no music. The house felt staged, like a set where the actors were holding their breath. My parents were sitting at the dining room table. My father had a glass of scotch in front of him. My mother was shuffling papers. Claire, my mother said. She stood up, but she didn't hug me. She looked wary. Thank you for coming. We knew you would come around. I haven't come around, I said, placing my binder on the table. I have come with a plan. We have a plan, my father said, tapping the Hearthway folder that sat in front of him like a holy text. Sign this, and the problem goes away. That is not a plan, I said. That is a trap, and I know about the trust. Dad, his eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? The Wood Family Preservation Trust, I said. Grandpa Silas, you can't mortgage the adjacent lot without my consent because I am a beneficiary. That is why you need me. It is not about the interest rate. It is about the title. It is family land, he shouted. It belongs to me. I am the head of this house. You are the trustee, I corrected, and you have a fiduciary duty to protect it, not leverage it to pay off a loan shark. Watch your mouth, he snapped. I am offering you a way out, I said. I opened my binder. Here is the reality. The business is insolvent. Kellen is going to sue. If he sues, he wins. He will get a judgment. We know that, my mother cried. That is why we need the loan. The loan just delays it, I said. And it drags me down with you. I will not sign the Hearthway loan. That is final. But I slid a document across the table. I will help you negotiate a settlement with Kellen. I will pay for a forensic accountant to clean up the business books so we can sell the storage facility to a legitimate buyer. We can sell it, pay off the debts, and you can retire. You will lose the business, but you will keep the house. Sell the business? My father looked at me as if I had suggested selling Evan. I built that place. It is already gone. Dad, I said gently. Kellen owns it. You just haven't handed over the keys yet. I am trying to help you keep the roof over your head. And what is the condition? He asked, his lip curling. What does the great Claire want in return? Transparency, I said. Full access to the accounts. And you fire Hearthway. You cut ties with Timothy Vance immediately. My parents looked at each other. A silent communication passed between them, a look I couldn't quite read. Was it resignation? Acceptance? We can't sell, my mother said softly. It is your father's legacy. His legacy is his family, I said. Not a row of metal boxes. My mother sighed. She reached under the table and pulled out a single sheet of paper. We appreciate your offer. Claire, she said. Her voice was strangely calm. We really do. But we have a different idea, a compromise. She slid the paper toward me. Mr. Vance prepared this, she said. He calls it the Family Responsibility Pledge. I looked at the document. It was printed on heavy cream stock with a gold border. It looked like a certificate of achievement. I, Claire Elizabeth Wood, hereby pledge my support to the Wood Family Trust. I agreed to stand as a unified front with my parents. Marcus and Diane Wood, in all financial endeavors. It looked harmless. It looked like a greeting card. But then I read the small print at the bottom. By signing this pledge, the undersigned grants Hearthway Family Stewardship Center and its affiliates full authorization to access, review, and utilize personal financial data, including but not limited to credit reports, bank statements, and tax returns, for the purpose of assessing family solvency. The undersigned further agrees to binding arbitration in all family financial disputes. I stared at it. This isn't a pledge, I said. This is a power of attorney. This gives Vance access to my bank accounts. It gives him the right to pull my tax returns. It is just for assessment, my mother said, smiling brightly. So he can see the whole picture. If he sees how strong your finances are, maybe he can structure the loan without you co-signing the deed. It is a way to help without putting your name on the mortgage. You think I am stupid, I said. The room went deadly quiet. I think you are difficult, my father said. This document, I said, tapping the paper, gives a predator permission to hunt through my life. It is a data mining trap. If I sign this, he doesn't need me to co-sign. He can use my information to secure the loan as a guarantor by association. It is right here in the arbitration clause. I stood up. I closed my binder. I came here to help you, I said. I offered you a lifeline, and you tried to trick me again. Sit down, my father said. No, I said. I am done. Kellen can sue you. Hearthway can foreclose. I am out. I turned to the door. My father moved. For a big man. He was fast. He was out of his chair and standing in the archway before I could reach it. He blocked the exit. He didn't raise a fist. He didn't have to. He just stood there, 6'2" of angry, desperate male entitlement, filling the space. Dad, I said, move. You don't walk away from this, he said. His voice was a low rumble. You don't come into my house, insult my business, refuse to help, and then just waltz out. I am leaving, I said. I felt the fear spike in my chest. Hot and sharp, this was the man who had loomed over me my entire childhood, the man whose silence was a weapon. Now, his physical presence was the weapon. You are a coward, he said. You think you are so independent? You are just selfish. You are hoarding your money while we suffer. My money is my survival, I said, and I am not giving it to you. I took a step forward. Move, Dad, or I am calling the police. He laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. The police? On your father? Try me, I said. I put my hand in my pocket and gripped my phone. He looked at me. He looked at the determination in my eyes, the set of my jaw. He was looking for the little girl who used to cry when he raised his voice. She wasn't there. He stepped aside. It was a small movement, just a shift of his weight, but it was a concession. As I walked past him, my shoulder brushing his suit jacket, he spoke. There she goes, he sneered. There is the independent girl. He said it like a slur. Like independence was a defect, a scar, a deformity. I didn't look back. I walked out the front door, down the path, and got into my car. I locked the doors instantly. I drove away, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I had escaped, but I knew, with a sinking certainty, that they weren't done. I was back in my apartment, staring at a glass of wine I couldn't bring myself to drink. When the phone rang, it was 10 o'clock at night. Evan, I answered. You have to do something, Evan said. He was whispering, his voice trembling so hard the words were barely coherent. You have to do something right now. What is it? Are you okay? I am in my room, he said. I have the door locked. I heard them. Claire, after you left, they called Vance. And? Vance told them that the deadline is tomorrow. He said if they can't get your signature, the deal is dead, and Kellen takes the property. I told them no, I said. I know, Evan said. But Vance, he told them there might be another way. He said that since you were there tonight, and since we are a family, a verbal agreement is binding. A verbal agreement for a mortgage? I asked. That is not legal. The statute of frauds requires it to be in writing. They aren't worried about the law, Evan hissed. Vance sent them a document, an affidavit of oral consent. He told Mom that if she signs it, swearing that you agreed to the terms verbally but had to leave for an emergency, he can push the paperwork through. He said they can get the loan funded before anyone checks. That is forgery, I said. That is perjury. They are doing it. Claire, Evan said. He sounded like he was crying. Mom is practicing your signature on a notepad. She has your old birthday cards out. She is trying to get the loop on the C right. My blood ran cold. Absolute zero. They weren't just manipulating me anymore. They were crossing the line into active, felony criminal conduct. They were going to forge my consent to save themselves. Get out of the house, I said. What? Get out, I commanded. Pack a bag. Right now. Climb out the window if you have to. Do not be in that house when the police come. The police? Evan squeaked. I am done negotiating, I said. Go to a motel. I am texting you Nadine's number. Do not talk to Mom and Dad. Just go. Okay, he whispered. Okay. I hung up. I called Nadine. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy. Claire, it is 10:30. They are forging my signature, I said. Tonight, my mother is practicing it on the kitchen table. They are going to submit a fraudulent affidavit to Hearthway in the morning claiming I verbally consented. Nadine was awake instantly. Confirmed? Evan heard them. He saw the practice sheets. Okay, Nadine said. We go nuclear. Tonight. What do we do? We file a preemptive affidavit of non-consent, Nadine said. I will draft it now. You will sign it electronically. We will email it to Hearthway, to the county recorder, to Kellen Capital, and to the state attorney general before business opens tomorrow. We are going to paper the world with the fact that you did not sign. And the cease and desist? That goes out too, Nadine said. But we are adding a criminal notice. We are putting Vance on notice that accepting that affidavit will constitute conspiracy to commit bank fraud. If he funds that loan, he goes to prison. Do it, I said. Claire, Nadine said, her voice softening slightly. Once we send this, if they try to submit that paperwork anyway, your parents could be charged. I know, I said. I looked out the window at the city lights. I thought about my mother practicing my signature. The C she taught me to write. They made their choice, I said. Send it. We spent the next 2 hours drafting the documents. I swore under penalty of perjury that I had refused the loan. I listed the date and time of my refusal. I explicitly stated that any document bearing my signature after this date was a forgery. At 1 a.m., we hit send. The emails flew out into the digital void, landing in inboxes that would open in the morning. I sat back in my chair. I felt hollowed out. I felt like a building that had been gutted by fire. Leaving only the steel beams standing, I was independent, finally, truly independent. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like I had just cut off my own limb to escape a trap. I waited for the sun to rise, knowing that when it did, it would illuminate the wreckage of my family, and I would be the one standing in the ashes, holding the match. The conference room at the offices of Kellen Capital was a study in intimidation. It was situated on the 40th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city I lived in, but had never truly felt part of until now. The table was a long slab of black marble, cold to the touch. I sat on one side, flanked by Nadine. On the other side sat a man I assumed was Mr. Sterling, the attorney representing the private lender. He was writing on a yellow legal pad, ignoring us completely. The clock on the wall ticked past 9 o'clock. They are late, Nadine said, checking her watch. It is a power move, or they are arguing in the parking lot. They are arguing, I said. I knew the pattern. My father would be shouting about traffic. My mother would be crying about her hair. Evan would be silent, staring out the window. 5 minutes later, the heavy oak doors swung open. My parents walked in. My father looked smaller than I remembered, despite his blustering entrance. His suit was wrinkled, and there was a gray pallor to his skin that spoke of sleepless nights and too much scotch. My mother was wearing sunglasses, which she removed to reveal eyes that were red-rimmed and swollen. Behind them, looking like a shepherd herding unruly sheep, was Timothy Vance. Vance was wearing a suit that cost more than my car. He carried a leather briefcase and wore a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He scanned the room, saw me, and nodded. A benevolent, forgiving nod that made my stomach turn. "Good morning, everyone," Vance said, his voice booming in the quiet room. "So glad we could come together in the spirit of resolution. We are here to support the Wood family in this transition." He pulled out a chair for my mother and then moved to sit at the head of the table, opposite Mr. Sterling. "Excuse me," Nadine said. Her voice was like a whip crack. "Who are you?" Vance blinked. "I am Timothy Vance, from the Hathaway Family Stewardship Center. I am advising Marcus and Diane on their refinancing options." "You are not a lawyer," Nadine said, "and you are not a party to this lawsuit." "I am a friend of the family," Vance said, his smile tightening. "I am here to facilitate." "You are here to observe," Mr. Sterling said, looking up from his pad. His voice was dry and bored. "From the back of the room, unless you are assuming liability for the debt?" Vance froze. "Well, no, Then sit in the gallery or leave," Sterling said. He pointed to a row of chairs against the wall. Vance hesitated, looking at my father for support. My father didn't look up. Defeated, Vance took his briefcase and retreated to the back wall. My parents sat down opposite me. They didn't look at me. They looked at the table, at the water pitcher, at the air vents, anything to avoid eye contact. Evan walked in last. He looked terrible. He was wearing jeans and a hoodie, a stark contrast to the suits in the room. He walked past our parents and sat at the far end of the table, alone. He looked at me, just for a second, and gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. "Let us begin," Sterling said. "My client, Kellen Capital, holds a promissory note from Briar Hollow Storage, LLC, guaranteed personally by Marcus Wood, in the amount of $412,000. The note is in default. We filed a notice of intent to sue 3 days ago. We are here to see if a settlement can be reached before we move to judgment and seizure. We have a plan, my father said. He cleared his throat. Sitting up straighter, he reached into his jacket and pulled out the Hearthway folder. We are in the final stages of a refinance on the family home. It will cover the debt in full. We just need a few more days to finalize the paperwork. He slid the folder toward Sterling. The appraisal came in high, my mother added, her voice trembling. The equity is there. It is a sure thing. Sterling didn't open the folder. He looked at me. My records indicate, Sterling said, that the refinance requires a secondary guarantor, a Ms. Claire Wood. She is here, my father said, gesturing to me. She is ready to sign. The room went silent. The air pressure seemed to drop. No, I said. My father's head snapped toward me. Claire, I am not ready to sign, I said. My voice was steady, anchored by the documents in front of me. And I will never be ready to sign. We discussed this, Vance called out from the back of the room. We have a verbal agreement. We have nothing, Nadine interrupted, turning in her chair to glare at him. Mr. Vance, if you speak again, I will have you removed by security. We sent you a cease and desist order at 2 o'clock this morning. Did you not check your email? Vance's mouth snapped shut. I turned back to Sterling. I am not a guarantor on this loan. I never agreed to be. In fact, I have filed a sworn affidavit of non-consent with the county recorder this morning to prevent any fraudulent attempts to use my name. I slid a copy of the affidavit across the table. Sterling picked it up and read it, his eyebrows raising slightly. My parents, I continued, are under the impression that they can refinance the property known as Parcel 443, the undeveloped lot adjacent to the home. They cannot. I slid the second document across, the deed history, the trust documents. That land is held by the Wood Family Preservation Trust, I said. I am a contingent beneficiary. The terms of the trust explicitly state that the land cannot be encumbered without the written consent of all adult beneficiaries. I do not consent. My father stood up. His chair scraped violently against the floor. You ungrateful little... Sit down, Mr. Wood, Sterling barked. She is lying, my father shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. She is trying to ruin us. That land is mine. My father left it to me. He left it to the family, I said quietly, to protect it from exactly this kind of situation. You are doing this out of spite, my mother sobbed. She buried her face in her hands. You want to see us fail. You want to see us on the street. How can you be so heartless? Claire, we are your parents. I am not heartless, I said. I am protecting myself, and I am protecting Evan. Don't bring him into this, my father yelled. He is loyal. He has stood by us while you were off playing corporate executive. I am not playing, I said. I am working, and I am producing documentation. I opened the third folder. These, I said, sliding the papers toward Sterling, are records of unauthorized credit inquiries made by Hearthway and my parents against my Social Security number. And this, I added, sliding the final page, is the record of a personal loan taken out in my name in 2014 by my parents, without my knowledge, which constitutes identity theft. Sterling looked at the papers. He looked at the dates. He looked at the pattern. He closed the file. Mr. Wood, Sterling said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. You told my client that the refinance was a done deal. You told us that your daughter was on board. You represented to us that the collateral was unencumbered. She agreed, my father insisted, though the desperation was leaking through his anger now. She agreed verbally. She is just getting bad advice from this lawyer. I didn't agree, I said. And you know it. That is why Mom was practicing my signature on the kitchen table last night. My mother gasped. Her head jerked up, her face draining of color. How dare you, she whispered. Evan heard you. I said. All eyes turned to the end of the table. Evan was sitting with his hands clasped in front of him. He looked at the table, then at our parents, and finally at me. "Evan, tell them," my father commanded. "Tell them your sister is lying." Evan took a deep breath. The silence in the room was absolute. "She isn't lying," Evan said. "Evan!" my mother cried. "She isn't lying," Evan repeated, his voice gaining strength. "I saw the notepad. Mom, I saw you trying to get the loop on the C right. I heard you tell Dad that if you could just get the papers past Vance, you could worry about Claire later." He looked at Sterling. "The business is dead. It has been dead for 3 years. Dad has been borrowing money just to pay the interest on other loans. We have 40% occupancy. The roof leaks. The security system doesn't work. We aren't refinancing to expand. We are refinancing to pay off Kellen so he doesn't break our legs." "Evan, shut up," my father roared. He looked like he was going to lunge across the table. "No," Evan said. He stood up. He was shaking, but he was standing. "I am done, Dad. I am done lying for you. I am done pretending that I am the good son just because I am too weak to say no." He looked at me, and tears spilled over his cheeks. "I am sorry. Claire, I am so sorry. I let them do it. I let them use you. I knew about the loan in college and I didn't say anything because I wanted the car. I am ashamed." I felt a lump form in my throat. I nodded at him. "It is okay, Evan. It is not okay," he said. "But it is over." He sat down. My father looked around the room. He looked at Vance, who was staring at the floor. He looked at Sterling, who was looking at him with open disgust. He looked at me. "You happy now?" he spat. "You win. You destroyed the family." "I didn't destroy it," I said. "I just turned on the lights." "Mr. Wood," Sterling said, cutting through the emotion like a scalpel. "The refinance is obviously not happening. The collateral is disputed. The guarantor is hostile. The application is fraudulent." He closed his legal pad. "Kellen Capital is exercising its right to immediate acceleration of the debt." "Please," my mother begged. "Please, we will lose the house." "However," Sterling said, raising a hand, "my client is a businessman. He does not want a house. He does not want a lawsuit that drags on for years involving trusts and identity theft counterclaims. He wants his money." He looked at Evan. "You say the business has assets?" "The land is valuable," Evan said. "The location is good. The structures are usable." "Here is the offer," Sterling said. "We will not seize the home on Briar Lane. We will not pursue the fraud charges regarding the loan application." My parents looked up, a flicker of hope in their eyes. "In exchange," Sterling continued, "you will sign a confession of judgment today. You will agree to the immediate liquidation of Briar Hollow Storage, LLC. We will appoint a receiver to sell the facility, the land it sits on, and all business assets. The proceeds will go to pay off the debt." "But that is my business," my father whispered. "That is my life." "That is your debt," Sterling corrected. "If the sale price exceeds the debt, you keep the difference. If it falls short, you will be placed on a payment plan for the balance, a plan that will be garnished from your Social Security if necessary." He looked at me. "Ms. Wood is excluded from this arrangement. Her name will not appear on the settlement. The adjacent lot, parcel 443, will remain in the trust, untouched." "I accept," I said immediately. "It is not your choice," my father shouted. "I won't sell." "Then we sue," Sterling said simply. "We sue you for fraud. We sue you for the debt. We sue Ms. Wood to partition the trust. We depose your son about the forgery attempts, and you will lose the house, the business, and probably your freedom." Sterling checked his watch. "You have 5 minutes to decide." My father looked at my mother. She was weeping silently, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. He looked at Vance, But Vance had already checked out. He was packing his briefcase, realizing there was no commission to be made here. My father looked at the table. For the first time in my life, I saw him for what he was. He wasn't a titan. He wasn't a patriarch. He was just an old man who had bet everything on a lie and lost. "Fine," he whispered. "Sell it." The signing took an hour. I sat in the room while they signed the papers that dismantled their empire. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel happy. I felt a profound, exhausting relief. When it was done, Sterling shook my hand. "Miss Wood, a pleasure. You have a good lawyer." "Thank you," I said. I walked out of the conference room. Nadine walked with me, her hand on my shoulder. "You did good, kid," she said. In the hallway, the elevator doors were closing. My parents were already inside. They didn't look at me as the doors slid shut. They looked like ghosts. But Vance was still in the hallway, waiting for the next car. He saw me and straightened his tie. He walked over to me, his face twisting into a sneer. The polite, religious mask was gone. "You think you are smart," he hissed. "You think you won something today? You tore a family apart. You dishonored your father. There is a special place in hell for children who abandon their parents." I felt a flash of anger. But Nadine stepped in front of me. She was shorter than Vance, but in that moment, she looked 10 feet tall. "Mr. Vance?" she said, her voice dropping to a low growl. "You are one step away from a criminal investigation for conspiracy to commit bank fraud. I have the affidavit. I have the emails. If you ever, and I mean ever, contact my client or her family again, I will personally hand-deliver that file to the district attorney. Do you understand?" Vance paled. He looked at Nadine, then at me. He realized that his moral shaming had no power here. He was just a grifter who had been caught. He turned and practically ran to the stairwell. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 9 years. "He is right about one thing," I said quietly. "I did tear the family apart." "No," Nadine said. "The family was already broken. Claire, you just stopped holding the pieces together with your own blood." The weeks that followed were a different kind of hard. The legal battle was over, but the social one had just begun. Harbor Glen and Briar Hollow were small communities, and news traveled fast. But the news that traveled wasn't the truth. It was the version my parents told. I started getting messages on social media. People I barely knew, friends of my parents, old neighbors, people from their church, sending me long, paragraph-heavy judgments. "I heard you refused to help your father when he was sick. How could you let them lose the business? They worked so hard for you. Money isn't everything. Claire, you will regret this when they are gone." They painted a picture of a heartless, corporate daughter who sat on a pile of cash while her elderly parents struggled. They omitted the gambling on the business, the private lenders, the identity theft, the attempted forgery. It hurt. It hurt like a physical ache in my chest. I wanted to scream the truth from the rooftops. I wanted to post the court documents. I wanted to expose them, but I didn't. I realized that explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me was a waste of energy. My parents needed that story. It was the only thing they had left to protect their fragile egos. If making me the villain allowed them to sleep at night, fine, I could take it. I blocked the accounts. I deleted the messages. I went to work. I focused on the renovation project. I went to therapy. I grieved. I grieved the parents I never had. I grieved the family I wanted. I grieved the loss of the illusion that if I was just good enough or successful enough, they would finally love me the way I needed. But I did not fold. I did not call them. I did not apologize. 3 weeks after the settlement, I was sitting in a coffee shop in downtown Harbor Glen on a Saturday morning. I was reading a book, enjoying the solitude, when a shadow fell over the table. I looked up. It was Evan. He looked different. He was wearing a uniform, a green polo shirt with a logo for a landscaping company. He was tanned, and his hands were rough, but the bags under his eyes were gone. "Hey," he said, "is this seat taken?" "No," I said. "Sit down." He sat. He put a key on the table. It was a single key on a plain ring. "I got a place," he said. "It is a studio, over on 4th Street. It is the size of a shoebox, and it smells like curry, but it is mine. I signed the lease myself." "That is great." "Evan," I said, and I meant it. "I am working for a landscape crew," he said. "It is hard work, minimum wage plus tips, but I like it. I like being outside. I like being tired at the end of the day because I worked, not because I was lying." "How are they?" I asked. I couldn't help it. "They are adjusting," Evan said. "The storage place sold. It covered the debt to Kellen, and there was about 20,000 left over. They are living on Social Security now. They are angry. They talk about you a lot. They tell everyone who will listen how you betrayed them." "I know," I said. "I tell them to stop," Evan said. "I tell them the truth. They don't like it. They scream at me. But I tell them anyway. And then I go to my apartment and I lock the door." He looked at me. His eyes were clear. "I am paying you back," he said. "For the car, the Camry. I know it was 9 years ago, but I calculated the value. I am going to send you $50 a week until it is paid off." "You don't have to do that," I said. "I do," he said. "I really do. I need to clear the ledger. Claire, I need to be independent too." He smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't the charming, fake smile of the golden boy. It was a small, shy smile of a man who was just starting to grow up at 31. "Thank you," I said. "I will accept it." We sat there for a long time, drinking coffee, watching the people of Harbor Glen walk by outside the window. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. For the first time in our lives, we weren't competitors for our parents' affection. We weren't the responsible one and the screw-up. We weren't the villain and the hero. We were just a brother and a sister, sitting in the wreckage of a burned-down house, realizing that the view from the ruins was actually kind of beautiful. I took a sip of my coffee. It tasted like victory. Not the loud, triumphant kind, but the quiet kind, the kind that comes from knowing that you saved the only person you could save, yourself. Thank you so much for listening to Claire's story. It was a journey of difficult choices, painful realizations, and ultimately, the hard-won peace of setting boundaries. I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening from today? Have you ever had to make a tough decision to protect your own independence? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories for more realistic, emotionally gripping dramas. Until next time, take care of yourselves.